All right, welcome back. Today, me and Damon, we're going to recap episode 4. If you've been watching and listening to these recaps since episode 2, we appreciate you. I've been pretty busy lately, but don't worry, I've been trying to rework the episode 1 recap. We did a big 1 hour long video for that. It got taken down by HBO, but the HBO Mafia will not win because we will get it up, I promise. But before I get into this, Damon, what were your thoughts, just initial thoughts from episode 4?
Huge change up from episode 3, but episode 3 was a huge change up from episode 2, so I think we're sensing a pattern here. Probably the best pure dystopian episode that we've got so far.
So let's get going. We open up with Ellie staring in front of a mirror with the pistol that she took from Bill and Frank's. She knows how to handle a gun, and she's really feeling herself. I fuck with Ellie, man, I really do. But Ellie then walks outside, and we see that Joel and Ellie have stopped at an abandoned gas station. Joel is siphoning gas from abandoned cars. Ellie breaks out this book of puns called Volume 2 by Will Livingston. Ellie's dropping puns left and right, but Joel is holding back from laughing and acts unamused. The two then hop in the pickup, and they start driving off. Remember, they're heading over to Wyoming. Ellie breaks out a nude magazine that she found. It's got pics of naked dudes who are apparently packing some serious heat. Ellie makes a joke about the pages being stuck together, and Joel looks visibly uncomfortable. Ellie then tosses the magazine out of the truck, and we get a montage of the abandoned highways, roads, amusement parks, tanks, cars, broken down trains, collapsed bridges, anything you can think of along the drive to Wyoming. The animals seem to be doing pretty well, just saying. Eventually, the two pull up to a forest to get some rest. Joel cooks up some 20-year-old Chef Boyardee ravioli. Absolute fire when I was a kid. They can't start a fire because it'll attract other humans who can potentially be way more dangerous than the infected. As they go to sleep, Ellie lobs another pun at Joel, which he entertains this time. You can tell she's starting to break down Joel's barriers a bit. You actually see Joel start to get nervous about protecting Ellie because that night, he ends up staying up throughout most of the night because of how paranoid he is that someone will actually find them. So, end of the first part of the episode, what were your initial thoughts?
That original drive-up sequence is just filled with isolation and palpable desolation the whole entire way through. We really get the tone set for the episode, and I think we also get the rhythm of this traveling thing that Ellie and Joel have to do now. It's going to be a different format. You're going to be seeing a lot more settings per episode, and I think that keeps things like actiony and fresh in a certain way. The paranoia is also quite palpable, but with good cause. I mean, the degradation of human society and the human individual itself, like that theme you touched on earlier, is going to come up more and more. And I mean, I can only imagine the further we get from what society was, the crazier things are going to get and the more unhinged people are going to become. I did enjoy seeing Joel actually warm up to Ellie. I think that this relationship is basically going to drive a lot of what we see for emotional feel and depth in the future. And to be honest, I think he takes himself too seriously around Ellie in the previous episodes. This him breaking down and sort of letting himself be human and letting himself connect again, I think can only be a good sign.
So now they wake up the next morning and Joel is brewing some shitty coffee because he basically stayed up all night. Ellie doesn't understand the beauty of coffee, which is blasphemous, but all of this shit is really old, so it probably tastes like ass. Ellie is navigating with the map, but she doesn't really know how to use a map that well because it's her first time. So as they're driving along, Joel says Tommy is near a radio tower near Cody, Wyoming. Ellie asks about Tommy, and Joel gives us more info on Tommy's background. Tommy has always been a joiner who wanted to be a hero, so he joined the army at 18 and got sent to Desert Storm immediately. The army didn't make him feel like a hero, so when the outbreak happened in 2003, he convinced Joel to join him with a group going up to Boston. Joel did it to keep an eye on Tommy, and that's where they met Tess. Tommy then met Marlene, who convinced him to join the Fireflies. Eventually, Tommy quit that too, and now Joel has to go out and bring him back. Just simple older brother shit. Ellie asks Joel why he keeps going if he doesn't have hope for the world. Joel says, you keep going for family, and that Ellie isn't family, but Tess is like family. I feel like Joel was being kind of a dick that time, but yeah, what'd you think about that quick little scene?
Yeah, absolutely. He is giving a little stiff arm to Ellie after threatening to let her in at the close of the last scene, so it's definitely a defense mechanism on his part, in my opinion. It seems like Joel has been a bystander in terms of his morality that he's chosen ever since the plague actually broke out, or plague outbreak, But I do sense that the fact that he likes to play the third party and kind of sink to the back and really take care of himself has got to be a product of that trauma from losing his daughter, and thus losing faith in the human race itself and humanity. So I think that we're still seeing some of that old scar tissue showing up.
Right, yeah. Joel's not going to let her in that easily. So now they finally pull up to Kansas City. Ellie is passed out in the car as they pull up, and there are a shit ton of abandoned cars on the highway leading to the city, and it's blocking their path. Driving near civilization, remember, is very dangerous, so Joel obviously tries to find a way around the wreckage. The two end up getting lost in the city because Ellie isn't too familiar with using a map, as I mentioned before. As they drive by, Ellie notices that the QZ is completely abandoned. Fedra isn't there anymore, so someone must have driven them out. Almost immediately, a man who looks injured appears and asks for help. Joel tells Ellie to strap up her seatbelt, and he drives straight at the man. I'm taking a break right here because we're about to get into some serious action, but what did you think about that scene when they pull up to Kansas City and it's it looks abandoned, but there's obviously some shit going on? What do you think about that?
Even before we see what goes down once they get through the city lines, the thought that I couldn't shake from my head was, damn, these guys really stick out in this kind of nice looking truck for the time and place that it is, driving around this area. Like, if there's one person who looks like they could be picked off for some big gain, it's these two right now. Which, never trust a guy asking for help in a dystopian movie. You just don't do that shit, especially when it involves kind of like pandemonium situation. There's also plenty of burning piles of ash around before we get right into the scene where they get pulled over, I believe, which, burning corpses doesn't seem like an indication of good fortune in this place, so you just got to buckle up and get ready.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, the nice pickup truck definitely sticks out because that is Bill's truck, and they've been living in a little paradise, basically. So, yeah, it sticks out. Anyways, back to the scene. Joel now drives straight at the man who initially acted hurt, but the man apparently is fine because he immediately runs away. It's an ambush that Joel sniffed out, but it's too late. As they're driving off, another man drops a cinder block on top of the windshield, and it fucks up Joel's line of sight. The car then runs over a spike strip, which pops the tires, and another man pops out and fires gunshots at the windshield. The pickup then skids out of control and crashes into a building. Ellie and Joel are unscathed, but they are cornered in the building and taking heavy fire. Joel gets Ellie to hide out in a side room while he returns gunfire, and he kills one of the men shooting him. The other man approaches the building but gets capped by Joel. Everything seems all right when all of a sudden a third man bursts through a side door and catches Joel off guard. He's on top of Joel and about to suffocate him to death with his rifle when Ellie crawls out from the side room and shoots the man in the back, paralyzing him. The man begs for his life and is crying for his mom. He says his name is Brian. The man gives Joel his knife, hoping it'll spare him. Joel tells Ellie to go back to the side room, and he stabs the man to death. As you had mentioned when we were watching this, Damon, can't afford to waste bullets. Tough fucking scene. Let's just take a quick break and debrief.
This is what we've been waiting for, right? These are the kind of scenes that when you think of a highly lauded video game actually getting adapted into something with this HBO budget behind it, like this is what you're looking forward to. And I think it definitely pays off in a lot of respects. We do get to see Ellie does have some instincts to her, right? She'll take orders from Joel, but only to a point. Like she does. She also has something deep inside her that OG training from Fedra that keeps her involved in situations like this. And is Joel maybe the most adrenaline-driven survivalist you've ever seen in a fight? He's remarkably calm until something goes awry, and then the switch flips, and you start to see him go into a zone that we don't normally see when he has Ellie leave the room. Like, yeah, that's like one of those scenes where you're just thinking like, shit, man, he is on a different level, and this is like, we're getting into territory of not Joel as the hero, but Joel as a heroic character who's still kind of morally bleak and more concerned with just survival at its purest, right?
Yep, absolutely. And after the firefight, they don't have much time before the others arrive, so the truck is now in bad shape, so they have to leave on foot. They escape just in time as reinforcements arrive, and those reinforcements find Brian dead as fuck. We then cut to an interrogation scene where a woman named Kathleen is interrogating an old man. Kathleen is asking the man for information on the whereabouts of several individuals. The man claims to not know, but when it comes to an individual named Henry Burrell, he shakes his head a bit too hard and gives it away. Kathleen reveals that her brother was kept in the same cell and beaten to death by Fedra. So the man most likely leaked information to Fedra, and it resulted in many people being killed. We then find out that the man is a doctor and actually delivered Kathleen. Wow. The man claims that he never leaked info about Kathleen's brother, but she doesn't care because Henry Burrell most likely did. Kathleen has the gun to his head when she's interrupted by honking noises outside. She walks out to see the dead bodies of the men Joel just killed. It seems like Kathleen is the leader of this rebel group that most likely forced Fedra out of Kansas City. They don't know who killed their men, so they think that it must be related to Henry. In a moment of anger, Kathleen storms back into the holding cell and caps the doc. She is fucking ruthless. She then comes out and tells all the rebels that this is the fault of Henry and that they need to search the city and find and kill all collaborators. We get a montage of these rebels storming buildings in search of Henry. What did you think about that intro to another group?
Kathleen, I think her name is Melanie Linsky. She played Rose in 2.5 Men. That was like the scene where I was like, oh, that's who that is. She did a really nice job. You could tell that that was kind of the Joel aspect, where it's like she has a past that still affects her future pretty heavily. And the way that she dealt with that doctor right after the line drop of, oh, do we have a doctor? Oh, that won't do anything. She storms back up and, like, on point, gets rid of a guy who clearly she's known for a while. It was also interesting to see the set pieces move around and everything taking shape here. A lot of Mad Max, a lot of Escape from New York. I half expected a Snake Plissken cameo when everybody was getting riled up in the town square for a moment. But overall, I think that we're kind of cutting to the chase now here about it's not quite as much Firefly versus Fedra as it is faction versus faction, which I think is even more interesting in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter which side you're on. It's everyone for themselves, essentially. So we cut to Joel and Ellie hiding out in an abandoned building and watching the shakedowns occur outside in the street. It's clear that this group isn't affiliated with the Fireflies or Fedra, as Damon just mentioned. Joel's plan is to get to a really tall building nearby and hide out. So the two wait for the activity to die down. In the meantime, they have a little bit of a heart-to-heart, sort of. Joel obviously struggles with this stuff. He wants to make sure that Ellie is okay after shooting the guy. Ellie then says it's not her first time, which is quite interesting. Is she referring to the infected that she killed in episode 3, or is it more likely something else, right? So maybe in Fedra school, but hopefully we'll find out. Ellie doesn't seem fazed that she sort of caught a body. Obviously, Joel finished him off, but still, Ellie did the real damage. Joel then teaches Ellie the correct shooting form because the Fedra method was Bush League. The two are starting to bond and become a real team. So yeah, what'd you think about that little scene?
We have officially exited the era of don't let Ellie carry the strap. Now, since it's paid off, I think Joel's finally come to terms with the fact that 2 guns are better than 1 in terms of the holders here in this situation. And he is right about the grip. That is far superior to what Fedra was cooking up. I've got a buddy who's rather high up in government agencies who is a superior rifleman, and he holds it just like that. So he's definitely got it right there.
I definitely trust this buddy that you're speaking of. We both know him. So we now cut back to Kathleen and her, I'm just going to call them the rebel group. Her right-hand man, we don't really know his name, but he says that they have found some signs of Henry. And then they had enter this abandoned building and climb up into the attic. In the attic, we see signs of recent human activity, including a bunch of pictures of Superman drawn by what seems to be a child. There are cans of paint everywhere too. We find out that Henry had a kid with him named Sam. It might be his younger brother or his son. We're not sure yet. Once again, if you're new to this video and you haven't been following us, Damon and I stated this in episode 1, but neither of us have played a video game, so we're learning this as we watch it. So there might be a lot of things that we don't know. Kathleen says they can't be too far away and that they will need food soon, so guard the rations and wait to capture them there. Kathleen's right-hand man then leads her down to the basement where we see something different. There's this large crater in the foundation, and the crater starts fucking rumbling. This is most likely something relating to the cordyceps. Maybe it might be the fungus emerging. It might be someone who's like starting to transform. Who knows? But either way, a huge infected turnout is probably going to happen in this building. Kathleen tells her subordinate that they will tell the others after they find Henry, but for now, they got to keep this a secret. So, yeah, any thoughts on that, Damon?
Yeah, I mean, we get the 2 faction aspect. It's coming to a head. And right when you're saying, like, give me more, I want to hear more about this Henry guy. I want to find out what exactly has created this rift in the 2 groups. That what appears to be a cordyceps, like, geyser waiting. Something's about to happen for her that has to connect to cordyceps in some way. It just feels like, unless there's something more unstable we don't even know about yet, which is very well possible because we are noobs. Now we just got to know what it is. I mean, it's even behind a couple of closed doors. Like, and also just word to the wise, never works out to try and hide a big secret from your people. So I can't imagine that. I mean, the whole Henry thing could even be a red herring to whatever's going to happen there.
Yeah, that's a good point about hiding the secret, because this could get people hurt and killed essentially, and infected. So, it could eventually come to bite Kathleen in the ass. So we now cut to Joel and Ellie. They break into this tall building to hide out for the night. The building is 45 stories tall, and in the morning, the two of them will use a high vantage point to navigate out of the city. As they hike up the stairs, Ellie asks Joel about his past, and he basically hints at the fact that he has done some really bad shit in the past, perhaps even killing innocent people. As they get to the 33rd floor, Joel finally can't take enough. Ellie calls Joel a lazy ass, but they start preparing for bed. Joel breaks a bunch of glass and puts it around the entrance of the room they are sleeping in. The glass should serve as an alarm if someone sneaks up on them. As they get ready for bed, Joel asks Ellie more about what she meant when she said it wasn't her first time hurting someone. This time it's Ellie who doesn't want to talk about it. Ellie tells Joel that she's noticed that he struggles to hear in his right ear. Joel says it's mostly due to him firing the gun so many times in his life. Before they fall asleep, Ellie drops one more pun on Joel, which actually elicits a real laugh from him. The pair share a nice moment, but it doesn't last for long, because next thing you know, Ellie wakes up Joel and we see two youths pointing guns at both of them, with one of the kids telling Joel to be quiet. Could this be Henry and Sam? What do you think about that final scene?
We do see a little more Joel and Ellie similarities. Both definitely have some skeletons in the closet, literally and figuratively. I think that this is the final breakthrough of when he laughs at the pun, and then she repeats that line over and over again, basically insinuating that, like, Joel's pretty fucked up. And, like, Joel finds a kind of dark humor in that, and I think in a kind of like, hey, you understand me kind of humor as well, which I thought was really cool and actually hit a pretty hard emotional chord for a close of an episode, especially when you're flipped on your ass as fast as waking up in the early morning hours to see that you are being held at gunpoint by who we can only assume is connected to one of the two factions. And the fact that we don't know who Henry or Sam are, like, maybe that faction. It seems like if they were with Kathleen, there wouldn't be as much of a negotiation process at this current moment. I don't know if I'm wrong. I could be very well wrong, but that's just kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, that's a good point, because Kathleen earlier in the episode had mentioned when she said, hey, she thinks that Henry and Sam are, or mostly Henry because Sam is a child, I guess, but Henry is responsible for sending in, they think Joel's a merc, and Henry is responsible for sending in Joel to kill some of their men. So it is interesting. It's implied that Henry has, some sort of reinforcements. It's not just a solo person with a kid. So we'll find out more next episode. Episode 5 can't come soon enough. Thank you for following us on this, and we're gonna do every single episode. So keep staying tuned, and we will catch you all later.